During the wedding reception, the microphone was handed to the mayor, Mr. Anderson, the father-in-law of my brother David. I am very happy that my beloved daughter is marrying a reliable man. Mr. Anderson began his speech, but his expression didn't look cheerful at all. As I wondered about this, the topic suddenly shifted to me. Since everyone will find out eventually, I want to let you know first. It's about David's brother. He didn't go to high school. Mr. Anderson's sudden statement changed the atmosphere in the room. People started glancing at me, and their stares felt piercing. You must be worried about having someone like him as a relative. I feel the same. A junior high school graduate is a disgrace to the family. His words echoed in my head through the microphone. I've been teased about my education before, but this was the first time I was humiliated in front of so many people. Moreover, this time it was rejection from someone who was about to become family. I wanted to leave the venue as soon as possible and hide somewhere where no one could see me. However, it wouldn't be acceptable for a close relative of the groom to leave halfway through the reception. As I was looking down, I noticed a commotion up front. When I looked up, David had stood up and taken the microphone from Mr. Anderson. Then, right after, Mr. Anderson's body started to shake. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm in my 30s and work in the local construction industry. I work for a well-known company in the area, and I've been entrusted with a decent position, so people often envy me. However, I wasn't always successful. I can say that I managed to climb up the position despite being in an underprivileged environment. Growing up in a single-parent household, I had to lead a frugal life, so I didn't have an environment conducive to studying. In elementary school, the family was just my brother David, me and my mother. My mother worked from morning till night. So in the mornings, we got ready by ourselves, went to after-school care, and then went home to eat bread crusts to stave off hunger. Sometimes, when there wasn't any food, we distracted ourselves with games to forget our hunger. I wasn't good at studying or sports, and I didn't have any dreams for the future as a kid, but David was different. He was excellent in academics and sports. He always shined at sports day and came first in his grade at the marathon. I want to become a police officer and make the community safe. He declared in front of the whole school, and I was proud of him. As we entered middle school, it became inevitable to think realistically about the future. While David maintained his dream of becoming a police officer, I drifted through school without any particular goals. It's time to get serious about your future. What are you planning to do? Called out by my homeroom teacher, Mr. Smith, to think about my future. I realized that I couldn't let my mother bear all the financial burdens of school and living expenses. Therefore, it was only natural for me to think about working and earning money after graduating from middle school. Ignoring Mr. Smith's strong recommendation, how about at least finishing high school? I started working at my current company right after graduating from middle school. That's how we spent our youth and grew up. David achieved his dream of becoming a police officer and works hard every day. Although we were a close family, work made it difficult to find time to meet and share updates. One day, I was surprised to hear from David after a long time. He told me he was going to be married. What shocked me even more was that his fiancée was Emily, the daughter of Mr. Anderson, the mayor of our town. David met Emily through an introduction of a friend, but he didn't know she was mayor's daughter at first. He was stunned when he went to announce their engagement and found the mayor waiting. David had met him several times in the line of duty but never imagined he would become family, so he felt very nervous, as he told me. "Mike, I know you're busy, but I need you to meet my new family. Mom came to the initial meeting, but you need to be introduced too." "Of course. I need to make a good impression on him since we work together." I hung up the phone, looking forward to the day. The day of the dinner with Emily and Mr. Anderson came quickly. I usually wear work clothes or cheap casual suits, so I bought a new suit for the occasion. Feeling unlike myself, I waited for them at the restaurant. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Thank you for having us today." Emily entered the private room with Mr. Anderson, a familiar figure from neighborhood bulletins and local news. David and I stood up to greet them. "Thank you for your time. I'm Mike, David's brother. It's a pleasure to meet you," I introduced myself. Emily smiled warmly and greeted me back. She was very pleasant, and her demeanor reflected her good upbringing. Mr. Anderson, however, seemed different from his friendly TV persona. On TV, he was always engaging and responsive with the townspeople, but here, he was standing with his arms crossed. Even while waiting for drinks, he didn't say a word, just sat there silently. I tried to make conversation with him to ease the tension. "Thank you for making time for us, despite your busy schedule, Mayor," I said as I poured beer for him when the drinks arrived. Mr. Anderson glared at me and responded coldly. "I thought this was supposed to be a private occasion." "Please, don't call me Mayor," he said in a chilling tone. His words sent a shiver down my spine, and I quickly apologized. Indeed, being a mayor in a small town means always having to put on a good face and rarely finding a moment of peace. Always being recognized and unable to act freely is much like being a celebrity. Understanding this, I tried to empathize with him. "I'm sorry for making you uncomfortable. I didn't consider your feelings," I apologized again. Mr. Anderson scoffed and took a long drink of his beer. Despite the awkward start, the dinner progressed smoothly. Thanks to the excellent food from the renowned restaurant and the efforts of David and Emily to keep the conversation going. The mood shifted again when Emily asked me, "Could you tell us more about yourself, Mike? I'm very interested in your background too. Which university did you attend?" he asked with frowning face. I couldn't meet his gaze. Education was always a sensitive topic for me. Since turning 30, it rarely came up, but whenever it did, it still unsettled me. I tried to respond confidently. "Actually, I started working right after junior high school to support my mother, who was working tirelessly. I didn't attend high school. Working in construction wasn't easy, but it allowed me to help my mother. So, I didn't graduate from high school, let alone attend university." My voice trailed off, afraid of sounding defensive. "I've worked hard to live my life and have no regrets. However, I don't have anything particularly impressive to boast about either." My timid demeanor must have been evident to Mr. Anderson. He looked down on me, laughing through his nose, and said, "I thought it was a joke when I heard you didn't finish high school. I can't believe it's true. You must have led a pathetic life without much effort. Or are you expecting financial support from us now?" His sudden harsh words left me speechless. While my background may not be impressive, I haven't lived pathetically, nor do I expect to rely on anyone. On the contrary, I've been given responsibilities in my current job and will be involved in significant local projects. Even Emily felt uncomfortable and spoke up. "Dad, isn't that too rude? Besides, Mike is contributing to society. Focusing on academic background is such an outdated way of thinking." David didn't nod, but his expression showed he agreed with Emily. Mr. Anderson, still unsatisfied, told Emily, "Stay out of this," and turned back to face me. "As you know, I am the mayor of this town. While my daughter's marriage will be welcomed, people will be interested in who she's marrying. And some will certainly investigate the family background." I understood what he was getting at. In a small town, news of someone's marriage quickly turns into gossip. With Mr. Anderson's daughter, people would undoubtedly dig into every detail. If they found out there was a high school dropout in the family, it wouldn't sit well with him. The more he spoke, the more pathetic I felt. Then Mr. Anderson said something that left me in disbelief. "David is a man my daughter loves, and being a police officer makes him very trustworthy. But what about you?" Sighing, he continued with a look of disdain. "Frankly, even if David becomes part of the family, I want to sever ties with you. Can you accept that?" I wanted to believe it was a bad joke, but he looked at me with a serious expression. Even Emily seemed shocked and couldn't find words to respond. In that tense moment, it was David who spoke up. "Mr. Anderson, with all due respect, I could only graduate from high school, attend college, and go to the police academy because of my brother. Without him, I wouldn't be where I am today." David continued with a passionate explanation. He detailed how I, having started working right after junior high school to support our hard-working mother, had covered his school expenses. Indeed, I rarely spent the money I earned on myself or indulged in luxuries. When David was in high school, he was too busy with his extracurricular activities to have time for a part-time job. So I earned his tuition and allowance. When he wanted to attend supplemental classes for college entrance exams, I also managed that expense. I was willing to spend any amount for David's education and aspirations because it was never a burden for me. On the contrary, I felt proud of David for achieving things I could never accomplish, like scoring well in exams and excelling in sports. David's hard work paid off, and he got accepted into a prestigious private university. Our mother was proud of David's efforts but also worried about how to cover the costs of living alone and tuition. "Mom, I'll handle David's tuition, so don't worry about it." "But you really need to slow down with work," I told her. "Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. But Mike, you work so hard and don't spend any money on yourself." "Don't worry about me," she replied. To support both our mother's relentless work and David's dreams, I worked even harder. In college, David had given up his dream of becoming a police officer to focus on his studies, but something must have sparked his interest again. As he started saying, "I want to become a police officer once more." Although David focused on research during college, he eventually rekindled his desire to become a police officer. "Don't worry about the police academy fees. Just focus on your dream," I told him. David smiled and reassured me. "The police academy pays a salary, so there's no need to worry about money." He then turned serious and said, "Thank you for everything. From now on, I'll be independent and make sure Mom doesn't have to struggle. Please start using your money for yourself." I vividly remember David's tearful expression as he said those words. David explained to Mr. Anderson how much he owed to me and my selfless support. Although I felt embarrassed, I sensed Emily looking at me with respect after hearing David's story. "Well, it seems you were a young man without ambitions or dreams," Mr. Anderson said as he stood up and put on his jacket. "Staying here any longer will just make the food and drink taste worse." "I'm leaving," he announced. "Dad, what are you saying?" Emily tried to stop him, but he ignored her and left the room. "I'm sorry for his rudeness," Emily repeatedly apologized, and I could only respond with a strained smile. Although I worried about the future after that dinner, David later told me that Mr. Anderson usually didn't behave like that. He might have been overly sensitive about the family connections due to his daughter's marriage. Emily also said, "I've never seen my father act like that before. It probably wouldn't be an issue if I wasn't around." David and Emily's relationship remained strong. The wedding plans proceeded smoothly, and the date was set without any major issues. Finally, David and Emily's wedding day arrived. Surrounded by many well-wishers, they pledged their eternal love. The touching scene brought tears to my eyes. While I was still emotional during the reception, the microphone was handed to Mr. Anderson. After Emily read her message to her parents, Mr. Anderson stood up with a stern expression. "I am very happy that my beloved daughter is marrying such a reliable man as David," he began, but his expression remained somber. As I wondered why, the topic suddenly shifted to me. "Everyone will find out eventually, so I'll let you know now. It's about David's brother. He didn't go to high school." Mr. Anderson's sudden announcement changed the atmosphere in the room. People started glancing at me, and their stares felt piercing. "You must be worried about having such a family as relatives." "I feel the same. A junior high school graduate is a disgrace to the family." His words echoed in my head through the microphone. I'd been teased about my education before, but never humiliated in front of so many people. Moreover, this time it was rejection from someone who was about to become family. This rejection hurt more than any other prejudice I've faced because of my education. I wanted to leave this venue as soon as possible and hide somewhere out of sight. However, it wouldn't be acceptable for a close relative of the groom to leave halfway through the reception. As I looked down, there was some commotion at the front. When I looked up, I saw David standing up and taking the microphone from Mr. Anderson. "I understand how you feel, Mr. Anderson," David said, slowly scanning the entire room. "To me, even though he didn't go to high school, Mike is a great and respected brother. He is involved in both the local tourism development project and the renewable energy power plant project, is a star in this town." Beside David, I could hear Mr. Anderson mutter, "Mike Johnson." Since there were people from the construction industry in the town hall in the room, I could hear whispers, "So he's Mike Johnson's brother." Mr. Anderson must have reviewed the documents about the projects planned in the town, including the involved companies and key figures. His face suddenly turned pale, and he began to tremble. As David said, I have been selected as a member of 2 major projects being considered in this town. The issues of population decline, economic stagnation, and energy problems in the town are urgent. And it's clear that our hometown could face a future of mergers and absorption if nothing changes. To protect our hometown, we need to implement some radical reforms. While we aren't neglecting childcare policies, they alone won't necessarily succeed. Moreover, it will take a long time for children to grow up, work, and contribute taxes. By that time, the town might not be functioning, and those children could leave for the cities in search of jobs. That's why, along with promoting childcare, we are focusing on the economic development of our town. The central pillars of this project are attracting tourists and developing infrastructure using renewable energy. If we can create attractive tourist spots, visitors from outside the county will spend money and stimulate the economy. And they might even consider moving here. The power plant project is still being refined, but if we succeed in generating renewable energy using local resources, it could alleviate the rising energy costs for the townspeople and create jobs, invigorating the town. Utilizing the underused land makes this a feasible plan. We are meticulously planning these projects with local companies and lawmakers, using state subsidies. Mr. Anderson must have been aware of these plans but probably didn't realize that the man he insulted as a junior high school graduate was the same person involved in these projects. Although I haven't achieved anything significant yet, the success of these projects depends on the collaboration between the government and businesses. Mr. Anderson's words and actions threaten the very foundation of this effort. Perhaps realizing this, Mr. Anderson appeared absent-minded throughout the reception. As soon as the reception ended, he came straight to me, forgetting to greet the guests. "Mike, you're an impressive man. I hope you continue to contribute to development of our town," Mr. Anderson said with a completely changed his attitude. While I was puzzled, Emily interjected. "Dad, please save this conversation for after seeing off the guests. And you have something else to say first, don't you?" Emily's voice carried a hint of anger, and Mr. Anderson fell silent. After the greetings and thanking the venue staff, he approached me again. "Mike, I have a proposal, given your talents. We need to trim the budget for the upcoming project." "I was hoping you could help with that," he said. I realized that he was trying to involve me in the town's financial matters. Although I couldn't make such decisions on my own, cutting investments now would hinder the town's development. Everyone is working hard to rebuild the struggling town. Frankly, it's problematic for someone in his position to have such a self-serving attitude. With all due respect, let's discuss this in the proper setting. "We don't want things to get complicated," I replied, trying to end the conversation. But he didn't back down. "But with the election coming up and political issues at play, I need to maintain a good fiscal status while leaving a legacy for the next election," he insisted. His selfish reasoning left me speechless. As I pondered what to do, Emily came running over. "I heard everything. It's rude to suddenly change your stance and try to negotiate. You should apologize for your previous behavior first." She scolded him like a teacher reprimanding a student. Prompted by Emily saying, "Come on." He turned to face me. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "That's too quiet and not enough. You owe him a proper apology." It truly felt like a teacher-student scenario. Looking around and seeing no one else witnessing this, I sighed in relief. If someone saw this, it would ruin his dignity as a mayor. "It's okay. I don't mind about it, and besides, I haven't accomplished anything yet. Let's work hard together from now on," I said. Hearing this, Mr. Anderson looked relieved. Although Emily still seemed unsatisfied, she probably decided there was no need to say more since I was okay with it. She apologized deeply to me before leaving. A few days after the wedding, I found myself sitting across from Mr. Anderson at the same restaurant. "Thank you for meeting with me today. I wanted to formally apologize for my previous rudeness. Please forgive me," he said. It seemed Emily had insisted he apologize properly, and he was now earnestly doing so. When he had asked to meet, I had assured him it was okay and not to worry. But he had been adamant about apologizing in person. Accepting his insistence, I agreed to this meeting, and it was clear that his sole purpose was to apologize sincerely, with no mention of budget concerns. Thinking about moving forward as colleagues without the baggage of my educational background lifted a weight off my shoulders. Several months passed. The project plans were progressing steadily, but CEO, Mr. Adams, began frequently summoning me to check on our progress. While he wasn't trying to pressure me, this project would significantly impact not only the town's future but also our company's performance and future operations. It was crucial to avoid the project being reassigned to another company or scaled down. Understanding his concerns, I often felt the pressure bearing down on me. However, there was no choice but to press on. Today, we were in the final stages of finalizing the project plan, with an important meeting ahead. I headed to the meeting venue adopting more serious attitude. The meeting initially seemed to go smoothly, but we soon faced a significant problem. The first step in the town's development required clearing the land, but the landowner refused to sell. Despite offering a generous purchase price and explaining the project's importance for the town's future, the owner remained adamant, saying, "I won't sell the land, no matter what you say." The meeting fell into a heavy silence at the unexpected setback. One of the attending council members raised his hand and addressed the room. "Shouldn't we just give up?" This was unrealistic from the start. "Longtime residents don't want new tourist attractions or energy facilities," he said. His words deepened the room's heavy atmosphere, and the tension became palpable. The executives from other companies in attendance looked visibly displeased. However, with the land issue, they couldn't argue back. The council member, who had always been skeptical about the project, seemed keen to return to the drawing board. If the issue couldn't be resolved, reverting the project was inevitable, but it was crucial for our town's future, beyond corporate profits. Mr. Anderson broke the silence. "I'll go talk to them. It might not be resolved immediately, but we need to take time to discuss it. This project is essential for our town's future," he said. While the corporate representatives looked relieved, the council member who spoke earlier reacted with displeasure. "What's going on? You used to agree with me, Mr. Anderson. Have you been bribed to change your mind?" Such an allegation was outrageous. Mr. Anderson remained calm and refuted him. "I don't change my stance lightly, but I will if it's for the town's benefit. We need to come together and embrace new initiatives for our future." The council member fell silent, unable to counter Mr. Anderson's passionate words. Although the issue remained unresolved, we reaffirmed our commitment to the town's transformation and moved to finalize the plans. Despite Mr. Anderson's efforts, I heard that the land issue still hadn't been resolved. At this rate, the project could be significantly delayed or even cancelled. When my concerns growing more and more, Mr. Adams called me in. Had the project fallen through? Although I had such concerns, when I heard from Mr. Adams that the project start date has been set, I was overjoyed. Mr. Anderson's persistent persuasion had finally swayed the landowner and he agreed to let the town manage the land. Despite numerous struggles, our efforts were about to bear fruit. The real challenge lies ahead. Let's build a town we can be proud of. With this renewed determination, I prepared to move forward. 3 years later, the town's development was well underway. The completion is still a ways off, but the project is starting to take shape, and I'm looking forward to the future. One busy workday, I received wonderful news from David. David's first son had been born. When I arrived at David's house with a gift, I saw Mr. Anderson gently holding the baby. "Dad, let Mike hold him too," Emily said. "All right, but wait a little while longer," he replied. Seeing him lovingly playing with his grandson made me smile. The house was filled with toys and baby essentials, most of which Mr. Anderson had bought. "For this child's sake, we need to make this town lively." Mr. Anderson murmured to no one in particular. "Generations will change, but this town will endure. To ensure these children can live fulfilling lives, I decided to continue contributing to our hometown alongside Mr. Anderson."